Okay, yeah, that's very helpful. Now let's shift gears here and let's talk a little bit about the consecrations because that was also brought up in the interview. Were there any things that you felt like, okay, well, this wasn't addressed and it was incredibly conspicuous and should have been addressed?
Well, the first point, and I haven't heard them engage with this argument at all, and I've had it out there for quite some time, is the fact that, again, I'll say it again, the right to select and consecrate and send bishops
Mm,
belongs to the Pope
hmm
alone. A state of necessity never justifies one to usurp that authority from the Pope because it's an authority that Christ himself conferred upon Peter. And you
mm,
can read this in the Council of Trent. You can read it in encyclicals by Pius the Sixth, Pius the Ninth, Pius the 12th. It's all over the place. You can
hmm
go back to the times of Augustine on that recognize this as a divine prerogative of the Roman pontiff, and nobody else can utilize that right without the Pope's consent.
hmm
The other thing I thought that was problematic, and again, this is very common, is there is a distinction, Michael, between consecrating a bishop without pontifical mandate
hmm
and consecrating a bishop contrary to the will of the Holy Father.
Okay.
Um, uh, you know, Jim advanced the Michael Davies apologia, right, which says that, well, hey, this right to or this necessity to have a pontifical mandate is relatively new development in the canon law. This was introduced in the 1950s by Pius the 12th, in reaction to what was going on with the Chinese, Patriotic Association, et cetera. None of that's relevant to the question of schism because Lefebvre was excommunicated both on the ground that he consecrated without a pontifical mandate, but also the schismatic act was that he consecrated contrary to the will of the Holy Father. You
Right.
see,
Right.
consecrating a bishop without a pontifical mandate, as we've always said, is not necessarily a schismatic act. It has happened. Circumstances may permit it in certain cases, but it's never permissible for a bishop to consecrate another bishop against the will of the Holy Father,
hmm
particularly when there is a canonical warning of the consequences of doing it. And so it's unfortunate that, again, our society friends have really failed to address that distinction. And again,
Yeah.
I've seen Michael Davies talk repeatedly about this pontifical mandate. It's true. Back in the early church and even in the Eastern church, as you well know,
hmm
there wasn't
hmm
pontifical mandates for
Exactly.
it. That's not the issue.
Right.
The
Right.
issue is he did something contrary to the express will and canonical warning of the supreme
Right.
authority.
Yeah. So when the Eastern churches were consecrating without a pontifical mandate, that wasn't being done against the express will of the Holy Father, saying don't go through with this and canonically warning
Right.
some prelate of doing that. Now, if I recall correctly, isn't there video footage of the ceremony where they ask during the illicit consecration ceremony, is there a pontifical mandate? And they say yes. Did I get that
Yes.
wrong? Can you clarify that?
I think you're correct. That is also my recollection from reviewing the video. And it's the same thing that the Bishop Williamson, for example, did when he engaged in his schismatic consecrations of Bishop Faure and Bishop Aquinas after he was, departed from the society. He, in fact, used the same so-called apostolic mandate that Lefebvre used when he
hmm
did his illicit and schismatic consecrations of those two bishops.
hmm
So they say yes because they think they're doing something in the name of tradition, but what they're truly doing, which is contrary to the very divine law of the church, they're sending themselves. They're not
hmm
being sent by Christ through his vicar. They're sending themselves, and this is what has always been condemned.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button. God bless.